4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Actually, Gresh is in for Zach Gelb today from the incredibly ostentatious estate of myself in beautiful New England somewhere. Yeah, that's right. There's a tennis court, there's a basketball court, and a pool for crying out loud. If that doesn't qualify for ostentatious, in the mind of Zach Gelb, I don't know what does, ladies and gentlemen. But we are coast to coast, border to border, and in America's hat known as Canada. You can listen to us around the world anywhere on the Odyssey app. Get us on SiriusXM channel 158. Oh, by the way, for those of you who would like to dare look at the ostentatiousness of my home studio, ladies and gentlemen, which really looks like, quite honestly, if you take a peek at it on the YouTube, it looks more like the Rubber Room at the Puzzle Factory, where you would just slam someone in there and close the door and let them bounce off the walls a little bit. That's what I get to do with you for the next couple of hours here on CBS Sports Radio. And I want to jump right into, we need like the carousel music, right? For anybody who has ever visited the great small state of Rhode Island, right? I was a Yinzer until I was 15 years old, and then I moved up here and became a New Englander. And, you know, the tiny little state of Rhode Island, there was a thing that I once ran called the Awful Shop. It was connected to this kind of like, you know, Dairy Barn place or something like that that's of local fame. And I ran one in Watch Hill, Rhode Island. Now, if you've never been to Watch Hill, Rhode Island, there's a lot of rich people there and a lot of dinks and, you know, not common folk like me and you, America. But across the street from this place that I ran for like a summer because they didn't have anybody else to do it, there was a carousel. And every day I'd go to that job in the summer, and the old lady that owned it across the street would be complaining about something. The lines are too long, the people are too messy, But I would always hear that carousel music in my head. And I made the joke about the Rubber Room at the Puzzle Factory. Maybe that's what put me there, quite honestly, ladies and gentlemen, was listening for one full summer to that carousel music over and over and over and over again. And that is what we are about to embark on in the National Football League, because the football world has gathered in Indianapolis, Indiana, to start to pick away at these football players in the Shorts and Shirts Olympics. And I'm not going to sit here and besmirch the combine, because quite honestly, when I played college football, I just wanted to get invited to it so they could figure out how big of a fat ass I was. But I never made it, and, que sera, 30 years later, I don't look at the combine and think, it's a waste of time or something like that. Because quite honestly, what's really happened is it's turned into league business getting done. Whether it is complaining about the tush push, which we will get to, or maybe swinging some deals to trade some quarterbacks or other people in the NFL, but we really start with the focus on the quarterbacks in terms of the carousel, because there are some guys that are on it. There are some guys that are waiting in line to maybe get on it, and we never really know when it's going to stop, or we never really know when someone is going to hop off. And when we start with the biggest guy out there, and I don't mean, literally or figuratively or anything like that. I'm just talking about the biggest name out there right now is Matthew Stafford. And I'm a believer that Sean McVay is a great offensive coach. I'm not a massive fan of Sean McVay, the head coach. I think his alleged offensive genius has been wrapped up into, well, he won a championship, so he must be good. Well, then I guess we can say the same about Barry Switzer, but I digress. So it feels like this is maybe more of a money showdown with Matthew Stafford than it is anything else with the Rams, because my first thought was, why does a genius, so I've been told, a genius like Sean McVay have to trade away a Hall of Famer to maybe go get another Hall of Famer in Aaron Rodgers to then try to load up again and win a championship? Because when you bust a big move and you win with a guy and the play isn't declining, I would also think with the way the Rams spend money and throw draft picks around like they're Frisbees, that paying someone like Matthew Stafford wouldn't really be a big deal. So it kind of made me say, what really could be going on here? Maybe they're just in like with Matthew Stafford in L.A. and not in love with Matthew Stafford in L.A. I guess I could completely understand that. I guess I could co-sign on that a little bit. But again, I would figure quarterback-driven head coach, Hall of Famer, you went and traded for the guy. If you've identified that he isn't the problem, then maybe try to work it out. Instead, there's this kind of high-stakes game of poker going on, if it's even a high-stakes game of poker, when ultimately it's all said and done and the numbers come out. So the Matthew Stafford thing is interesting because if you're Pittsburgh, if you're Las Vegas, if you're a team in need of a quarterback, you would think you would be interested in being in business with Matthew Stafford. Now, maybe that's where the other teams look at the money and say, nah, it ain't worth it. Right before I hopped on here on Infinity Sports Radio, I am Gresh in for Zach Gelb. You can get me all over social media at The Real Gresh, Gresh. Right before I hopped on, I saw a story where Tom Brady was wooing Matthew Stafford, having him out to the ranch or the house, or I don't know which one Brady's living in these days. I know he's got that one that is down on Billionaires Row or something like that in Miami, and all the dopey reporters in New England for a period of time like, Brady bought something in New York City. He's going to the Jets. It's like, okay, rich people make real estate transactions. Let's not overrate this stuff. But apparently Tom Brady had Matt Stafford, out to the old property, and maybe didn't talk about throwing the ball around a little bit, that day, but I'm sure they talked about throwing the ball and the money around to be able to get a quarterback and help fill that building in Las Vegas now that Tom Brady has some stroke and say within that organization. So I'm not quite sure even really if the Matthew Stafford situation is going to hold up the rest of the carousel. It feels like Stafford is on it, and we'll see which teams want to engage his agent, but that appears to be the real first domino that might need to fall in all of this, or we get to a point to where it's like, well, the Stafford and the Rams are just jacking around, so I'm going to, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to go out and find my next team. And as that carousel music continues to play and the carousel continues to just rotate around, we then move on to Aaron Rodgers. And I know the New York Jets organization and their ownership did not get glowing reviews from the players of the National Football League. And we'll go through this NFLPA voting stuff a little bit later because some owners are just going to overreact to it, and some of it is completely silly, right? But I know that the Jets have already said, hey, listen, Aaron Rodgers, we don't want to be in business with you anymore. We're going to move on. I thought, quite honestly, that maybe Aaron Glenn looks at it and goes, hey, that guy's still pretty good. Maybe I can tame him a little bit and sort of reset the expectations. Nope, feels like the decision was already kind of made for Aaron Glenn, and as a first-time head coach, you're going to go along with it. So Aaron Rodgers is going to end up somewhere different. Now, here's the wild stuff for me relative to Aaron Rodgers and where he could end up. I have a guy that I know that covers the Titans really well. He's a great reporter. And he said, hey, there's mutual interest maybe down here. And it's the whole mutual interest maybe because with Aaron Rodgers, I think everybody, you don't want to speak in certainties when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, right? But I do believe there's like a house down there for Rodgers. He's familiar with Nashville. And I then, at first, I was like, Tennessee doesn't seem to make sense, right? But there are two things there. There's a Callahan, and we know that Brian Callahan, the head coach, and Bill Callahan, all of the connections to the West Coast offense and Green Bay Packers. So there's at least a little bit of familiarity and respect there. Or, if I'm going to be cynical about it, maybe Aaron Rodgers just has somebody to be able to bully around. There could be that. But also, in Nashville, they're building a stadium. And I know that, let me grab the collar for those watching on YouTube and stretch it out a little bit, you know what I mean? There are those who are like, let me stretch the collar out. I don't, how are we going to get people in this building? How are we going to sell luxury suites? How are we going to sell the club seats? We got to sell sponsorships. Will Levis isn't exactly going to be the guy that, Hassan Pfeffer from sales is going to bring with him and be like, here, why don't you meet Will Levis, everybody? They're like, no, get out of here. If that's Aaron Rodgers, maybe you only get to meet him one time and it's very quick and it's a handshake, but it's Aaron Rodgers. It's creating a different kind of buzz about a situation in Tennessee where that guy might be able to walk in and not only make a difference on the field, but maybe more importantly, to Amy Adams Strunk, make a difference off the field. I am Gresh in for Zach Gelb on Infinity Sports Radio. You can grab a line, 855-212-4227, or if it's just easier for you to yell at me via social media, I'm everywhere at The Real Gresh, Gresh. So I don't know where Rodgers is going to get off. I know Rodgers has said a good team that's interested in me. Well, I think there'll be a few of those, and I'm telling you, I wonder if the whole respect that Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers appear to have for each other, if that ends up meeting here in this free agency season, and does Pittsburgh dare go there? Then there's Sam Darnold. And look, let me just be the first to say, great job by Sam Darnold this year. You shut a lot of people up. You had a great unicorn season. I'm not paying him $40 million. Point blank, period, stop, plain and simple. I don't even know if I would go to $30 million for a guy like Sam Darnold, because I've heard a lot of people in the football world say, it kind of lands on that Baker Mayfield contract of, maybe 3 years, $100 million or something like that. That ain't going to be me. If I were an owner, if I were a general manager, nope, I would try to find a quarterback elsewhere. And this isn't a mega anti-Sam Darnold take. It's a Sam Darnold has now priced himself too high, I think, for the rest of the market. I quite honestly have the same feelings about Brock Purdy. People are like, oh, you got to pay him $55 million. No, I don't. No, I don't. I think I might be able to look to upgrade that spot. And then there's Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson is going to be, at least relative to kind of what could happen with the quarterbacks, and we're going to get to the curious case of Kirk Cousins coming up in 10 minutes here on Infinity Sports Radio, because, wow, that situation has taken a little bit of a twist and a turn. But when you look at Russell Wilson, I kind of feel like Russell Wilson will be the girl you take home because you have little chance and there's not many options left. So you're just like, all right, why not? We've had a fun night. Why don't we cap this thing off type deal? That's to me what Russell Wilson is. It's kind of like the last relatively good-looking girl in the bar, and you go home with her, and, it is what it is, right? Because Russell Wilson can still play a little bit. I don't think Russell Wilson is as big of a kind of an off-field sort of dink, snob, whatever you want to call it, like he was in Denver, where it was, go to Russell's office and make sure you schedule time with him before you want to talk to him if you're a teammate. You're like, get the hell out of here with this stuff. You know what I mean? Are you with us or you're not? Tom Brady's hanging out with offensive linemen telling fart jokes. Meanwhile, Russell Wilson in Denver, you got to book an appointment with the guy. It's insane. And then this is really my favorite question, and feel free to send me your answers via Twitter or X at The Real Gresh, Gresh. Which quarterback from the 2021 draft class even has a job next year, right? So we know that Trevor Lawrence, hand-stamped franchise quarterback, we know they've invested in him. He's okay. But is Zach Wilson getting work? Is Trey Lance getting work? I don't know. Maybe Jerry Jones ends up, signing that guy and being like, well, he got a lot of potential. And then you have Justin Fields, who, good grief. It feels like there were a lot of people for a period of time that, Justin Fields was this uncrowned Super Bowl champion. He just was in bad situations, and we kind of fleshed that out. And then there's Mac Jones, who is the most successful of the group of guys that I just mentioned. He at least has a 10-win season and went to the playoffs. Then Matt Patricia walked through the door and Bill Belichick walked out, and the guy just completely melted down. And we saw what he turned into in Jacksonville. So there are at least 4 guys that are going to be riding the carousel for a long period of time. I hope they don't need some, like Dramamine or something like that, because they'll be riding it so long they're going to puke. They're going to puke. But it also goes to show, I mentioned Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, Sam Darnold, Russell Wilson, a bunch of young guys that their teams have already given up on. And you have, 2 quarterbacks coming out in this draft that people are kind of like, meh. Yeah, I think they like them. I don't love them. I don't know if anybody is going to do backflips for Cam Ward, and it sure feels like that the Shadir Sanders market is starting to sink a little bit. So your thoughts on the QBs, 855-212-4227. And speaking of quarterbacks, I thought Kirk Cousins was going to be with Atlanta next year. But a hidden injury and a revelation might change all of that. I'll get to it next. I'm Gresh in for Gelb on Infinity Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
Rolling along on this Wednesday, and speaking of rolling along, how about Kirk Cousins? More like limping along, apparently, or, I don't know, hiding an injury, depending on who you believe. I am Gresh in for Gelb on the Infinity Sports Network at INF Sportsnet to get us on X and the Twitter or whatever in the world it is that you call it. So last year, the Atlanta Falcons were a very interesting sort of case study because they had to hire a head coach, and their owner, Arthur Blank, engaged in discussions with one Bill Belichick. And what happened in Atlanta? All the people in the organization, they huddled up. They were nervous. Ooh, we might have to hide. The big bad wolf might be coming in. Because remember, this was coming off of everyone in New England being on the wambulance of, wah, Bill's too mean. Wah, Bill's too old. Wah, Belichick is this. Well, Arthur Blank sure as heck liked him. And that Atlanta group rallied. They convinced Arthur Blank, no. Let us hire a new head coach. You love Raheem Morris. They knew the guy that would, tug at the heartstrings of the Atlanta owner who's getting up there in age and desperately would love to have a Super Bowl, I'm sure, before he exits being among us. Just being real about it. And they went with Raheem Morris and kept Terry Fontenot and signed Kirk Cousins and still missed the playoffs. I do wonder if there's a part of Arthur Blank who's like, man, what did I do? What did I do? But then again, he does like Raheem Morris, and they weren't a disaster, but they definitely underachieved. And Kirk Cousins, who signed a big 4-year, $180 million contract in the offseason, he got a $50 million signing bonus. He got $100 million guaranteed. And all of a sudden, Kirk Cousins was playing a brand of football. And then I do believe people have now kind of narrowed it down, I guess, to week 10, where Kirk Cousins would have dinged up his shoulder and then played bad. And then we know that Michael Penix got in there and the rest was history. So apparently now, as we have come to find out, the Falcons, or at least their general manager, Terry Fontenot, were kind of unaware as to what exactly was going on with Kirk Cousins, and I guess did him being hurt is news to me. Here is general manager of the Falcons, Terry Fontenot, on radio down in Atlanta talking about not only this situation, but did Kirk ever say anything to you during the year?
You're comfortable with Kirk on the roster. What is your position now with him? Has it changed because of what has happened, and where are we with the possibility of moving him?
No, it hasn't changed. And just like with any player at any position or any decision we make, we always have to look at all the circumstances and do what's absolute best for the Atlanta Falcons. But at this point, that hasn't changed.
How does something like that kind of happen with the injury report stuff? Is that something that is because he doesn't show up after the Denver week. Is that on the player to report that? Where does the fault lie there?
Correct. This is he was on the injury report that week, the week heading into the Denver game. He wasn't on the injury report any other times at any other point in the season outside of that, so we weren't aware of any injuries outside of that. It's our job when a player's injured to make sure he's on the injury report, so that's the only thing we were aware of.
All right, so that's either a GM doing a little CYA, or he is just completely pushing the kind of the blame to the player for not communicating it in a league that is infamous for not reporting injuries. And I'm not talking about teams not reporting injuries. I'm talking about players who are looking at it and not wanting to report injuries because they want their spot. They don't want to give up their spot. To which I say, hey, if you're going to play hurt, then fine, play hurt, but the expectations don't really change very much. And that's ultimately what happened to Kirk Cousins. Now, right after the season ended, Terry Fontenot was also on record of saying, yeah, we like Kirk Cousins on the roster. We know he's high paid, but we're comfortable with him as the backup. Now I'm not so sure. And at least in that interview, Terry Fontenot was consistent with what he said at the Combine, which was kind of the typical, well, we're going to do what's in the best interest of the Atlanta Falcons and yada, 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 yada. We hear that all the time. And, you're either smoking somebody out to make you a Godfather offer to steal this guy, or you're realizing that you're going to try to manage it the very best you can and say what you can to sort of preserve any kind of value. So if you decide at the end of camp you want to punt this guy or you want to go in another direction, then you can do so, and maybe you didn't sink his value. Personally, I think the Atlanta Falcons are stuck with this guy. The money is just too onerous to not keep him on the roster. But I guess the question is, has the trust been broken between Kirk Cousins and let's just call it Atlanta Falcons management? Maybe you mix the coaching staff in there. Do you now have people in Atlanta that are looking at Kirk Cousins a little differently? And maybe, just maybe, there was a thought inside a front office who, as proven when, William Hoodsworth Belichick was almost hired by the Atlanta Falcons, that group can come together, do some groupthink, and persuade an owner one way or another. Now, I understand that Kirk Cousins might not have been completely truthful with management, but I don't think to the management people of the Atlanta Falcons that this is necessarily something new, or that this is necessarily that, is something that you would overreact to. We knew that when Kirk Cousins got signed there last year, and then they turned around and drafted Michael Penix, there were a lot of people at that time who were saying, well, it looks like Cousins only going to be there for a year, and then they're going to move on from this guy. Or if Penix pushes his way into the lineup earlier, then they just, sit Cousins down and, the checks continue to cash and you just kind of move on with life and hope you win enough football games to be able to keep your owner happy. But I would keep Kirk Cousins around because I think the young quarterback needs it. But now I wonder if Atlanta is kind of maybe forced into doing something here because of the rest of the credibility with the head coach and the roster. I do think you would. I admire the toughness of Kirk Cousins, first of all, right? Now, I'm also old school, and we've gotten to a point in the NFL to where you are allowed to raise your hand and say, I hurt, or I'm concussed. And it's not the Bill Parcells way of doing things where go get some smelling salts. Can he see straight? Fine. Get your rear end back out there. That culture's gone in the NFL. Well, let's also not think that there still aren't old school guys in the league who don't want to give up their spot, who have money on the line, who have a massive amount of pride, who are going to be willing to not disclose completely what is going on with an injury. And you could say that Kirk Cousins was a part of the demise of the Atlanta Falcons this year. Some would say, they were only in position because Cousins got in there before he got hurt, and then it started to sink. And, then people started to scramble in Atlanta a little bit before landing on the record that they did. And judging by this NFLPA survey, the players love them some Raheem Morris down there. And I'll get to that coming up. So there's another quarterback to throw into the fray. Because if I keep using the Carousel reference like I did from Little Washoe, Rhode Island, Kirk Cousins is kind of standing in line with maybe the general manager and the owner of the team, sort of, like outside the railing, guiding little Kirk to go hop on the carousel or whatever. But is that another name to be thrown into the mix? Now, there's a big, hefty payday involved, but this is a little hunch on my part. Whereas it might take a second-round pick to get Matt Stafford, it's probably a middle-round pick to be able to get Kirk Cousins, if Atlanta even makes him available. But I thought Cousins was going to be there. Now I'm starting to wonder if that is just another quarterback that's going to be on this carousel looking for a job next season. And then there's also the who wants the guy? Because with all due respect to Kirk Cousins, it was the injury before with the Achilles. Now he gets dinged up again. Looks like a shoulder issue or whatever. Can you count on the guy to be able to stay upright and healthy throughout a 17-game season? So maybe this could end up being a beginning of the end for Kirk Cousins because of the injuries, and maybe he broke some trust, or he's just sitting on the bench and they put him in bubble wrap and bust him out whenever they need to. 855-212-4227. Don't forget you can get us anywhere that you can get an internet connection on the Odyssey app. You can also catch me on the YouTube channel as well for Infinity Sports Radio, or Infinity Sports Network, excuse me. I'll get the branding right at some point. I've been mentioning the numbers and all that as well. Actually, I'm only getting nervous because I'm about to welcome in Rich Ackerman, the one and only Rich Ackerman, ladies and gentlemen.
You get demerits for not getting it right.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you'll write me up, right? I get a little email from Ack afterwards of, here are the things you need to tighten up a little bit.
As long as you get the phone number right, you're in good shape.
There we go. How are you, buddy? How's everything?
I'm good. How's Carl?
You know what? Carl is my now soon-to-be 9-year-old golden retriever. He has olden face, Ack. He's such a good boy.
Face. Okay.
He went for a big walk and a swim today with my wife. He cannot stay out of the water, even it's 35 degrees or whatever. Doesn't matter. Doggy's got to go swim. Thank you for asking. It means a lot. I love my dog. He's my guy, and my cat is 10 and brought in a chipmunk the other day.
Oh boy.
Well, you know what's starting to heat up a little bit. The critters are starting to run. Kitty is out there near the fence, kind of hunting and bringing. He hasn't brought in a bird in a while.
Okay.
And Carl went nuts when the cat brought in a bird and the thing is flying around and my wife's trying to chase it. The dog's going nuts. I just sit there and video it. I'm like, I'll be able to make some money on this at some point. Well, Ack, I'm very happy to be back with you once again, my friend.
Of course, me too.
Long-time relationship that we get to rekindle once in a while here on Infinity Sports Network. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's get you updated on everything in the world of sports. Here is the great Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Or at least slightly better than mediocre. This report is sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Your small business keeps you on the go. Progressive Commercial Insurance keeps your policy within reach with their easy-to-use mobile app. Learn more at progressivecommercial.com. 2 receivers have been granted permission to seek a trade, and now 2 defenders as well. The Titans, Harold Landry is the latest. The 28-year-old 2-time Pro Bowler is available after playing a full season last year in which he had 9.5 sacks. As for one of those receivers, Niners wideout Deebo Samuel, wanting a fresh start. Niners GM John Lynch said they're aiming to give it to him as they are on good terms. And as of now, Matthew Stafford remains a Ram. The team has reportedly received calls on him, as you'd expect, but they haven't closed the door on a return. Head coach Sean McVay said on the Fitz and Wit podcast, the situation was born out of the business side rather than an emotional attachment.
He and I have had great dialogue throughout this process. I know where we wanted to be able to end up, but these decisions aren't made in a vacuum, and that's kind of the challenging part about it. But love this guy, and he's been incredible for us.
One of the NBA's lengthy winning streaks will end tonight. The Pistons have won 7 straight and host the Celtics, who are looking for their 7th in a row. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, like us on Facebook. Our handle is INF Sportsnet. That's INF Sportsnet for our Facebook page. This is the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
Gresh in for Gelb here with you today on the Infinity Sports Network. And it's time to Ask the Pros, where you, the listener, get to ask us a question, brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Tweet your question at INF Sportsnet or at Zach Gelb, or send it to me at The Real Gresh using the hashtag AskThePros. Be listening later in the show. Might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices, excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. That was the place my old man went to when I was a kid, and they are fantastic. Well, some organizations, according to the players, are fantastic, and, well, some have a little bit of work to do, because today is the day that the NFL Players Association rolled out their team report cards for 2025. It's funny because I was working in Boston last year, right? And when this came out, Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots, did the, well, I didn't realize we were performing that badly. Because he had a guy in Bill Belichick who would tell the players, shut up, or I don't care. Give me an F, I don't care. The facilities aren't great, I don't care. So Robert Kraft did the, let's continue to fade all of the heat for stuff like that to someone like Bill Belichick. And then, they hire a friendly coach, and then they start to break ground on a new facility, and then that coach is gone, and they go back to somebody who had structure and discipline and would be willing to tell someone, shut up, too bad, a weight is a weight, do push-ups if you need to, let's get into shape and go play football type thing. But we now know, in the world of the NFL, we have guys coming in from college who are going to programs like, Alabama and Ohio State and stuff like that. And you get to the door and there's some lackey there waiting. Oh, can I carry your bag for you? Even though you're 18 years old. Oh, can I carry your bag for you? Can I give you a little pat on the bum? Hey, do you need a huggy today? Get you a big hug if you need one. And you can tell it kind of drives me nuts. But the NFLPA must be heard, and maybe owners need wake-up calls. But for those who don't know exactly what this is, at the end of the year, the players end up getting a survey from their Players Association asking them to rank the following categories in every organization: treatment of families, food and dining area, nutrition and nutritionist dietitian, locker room, training staff, weight room, strength coaches, team travel, head coach, and ownership. We know that there's a massive arms race going on in college football right now. So a lot of these guys, in some ways, are going to come from more ridiculously opulent, crazy-looking, unbelievable locker rooms that have, a PlayStation in there, or what would it be? Mike, Mike or Stu, what would the lean be? Do you have to go PlayStation or Xbox in the locker, or do you have to really suck up to these kids and put both of them in the locker?
Ooh, I think both is a good shout. I think I would lean PlayStation, but I think both is probably the right answer.
I would lean PlayStation too, because that is the console with which I'm most familiar. But, again, you got to take care of the kids, so maybe you got to give them both. Well, the first thing I did whenever this survey came out was I wanted to know what the players thought of the head coach and the owner. Because, honest to God, you're a pro athlete. It's great the team has a nutritionist. That's probably on your docket as a professional athlete as something that maybe you want to take care of yourself, right? And the training room and the training staff, and I couldn't give a hooey about that. It just means if you don't like it as a player, either you came from somewhere where it was better, or the owner doesn't spend a lot of money on it, or you don't like the guy who's taping the ankles or whatever in the world it is, right? I'm Gresh in for Gelb on Infinity Sports Network, 855-212-4227. So here are the owners who got an F. Woody Johnson of the Jets. No surprise there. They were a disaster, even though they went after it by going and getting Aaron Rodgers. They went and got, Devontae Adams. You could argue that they tried to make the effort, and it just didn't come together for many reasons. So now everybody got blown out of there. It's real easy for the players to kind of throw the owner under the bus because a lot of those guys ain't going to be back anyway. And Woody Johnson is kind of a goof. I mean, if we're going to be real about it. The other owners who got a D, and it might have been like D+, D-, whatever, as someone who graduated a major institution, ladies and gentlemen, the University of Rhode Island. Proud graduate of 96 or 7, whatever they classify me, and a solid 2.01 GPA, but graduating proudly with a degree in journalism, which I've never used in this job, but nevertheless. So I'm just lumping together the D's, because you all kind of stink. You have Arizona, Carolina, Pittsburgh, the New England Patriots, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, Junior Bidwell has done a lot of things bass-ackwards for many, many years, to where I guess I can kind of understand that a little bit, even though they play in a really nice building. I actually went to their facility, 10 years ago now, whenever a Super Bowl was out there that New England was playing in, and we ended up taping interviews in the Cardinals facility. I hope it's been improved by then. Carolina, here's what's going on in Carolina, folks. In terms of the owner, it's dopey owner syndrome. It's a billionaire who gets his hands on a brand new toy, and he can't help himself. So he's going to tell people what to do. He's going to tell them who to draft. He's going to do all different kinds of stuff that's going to drive people crazy. Because the new owners can't help it. It's like, well, it's like my other businesses. No, it's not, and that's been proven. And maybe David Tepper down there in Carolina will learn that. And then the remaining 3 are 3, I think, good to great owners. I know people don't love the Glazer family, but they've kind of salvaged coming out of the Tom Brady era by not completely collapsing. They went out and spent money on Baker Mayfield. So while you're not going to get a Tom Brady level quarterback to replace Tom Brady, don't get me wrong. But it's not like they haven't made investment. Now maybe they, even if the ticket prices got jacked up, the players wouldn't care. So I did find that one pretty interesting from an ownership end. And then Old Man Rooney and the Steelers. Some of that has to be sharing a facility with the University of Pittsburgh, like on game day. Maybe not going out and spending the maximum amount of money on a quarterback. That's another one where I kind of scratch my head and furrow the brow a little bit and be like, wait, what? They hate that guy? Or they don't respect him? And then there's the New England Patriots and Robert Kraft. Now look, interest of full disclosure, I will completely tell you that from 2005 to 2014, I was a pregame, halftime, and postgame analyst on the Patriots radio network. I did not work for them. I worked for a radio station that had their rights. And I got to see a lot of sort of the belly of the beast. I got to go inside what was really going on for a long period of time. And I mentioned last year that with Bill Belichick gone, that, Robert Kraft had already handpicked his head coach to be Gerard Mayo, who was a complete disaster on so many levels. Guy came out his first press conference and was like, well, I feel like you really got to get to know him, befriend the players before you can ask him what to do. It's like, dude, you're dead. And he was pretty quickly. And everybody figured out that he had no idea what he's doing. But as I flip my little page here and I look to the head coach, and I see the grade that was given to the New England Patriots head coach, Gerard Mayo, is a B+. So deductive reasoning tells me that some people who were in that organization, the New England Patriots and the players, were voting maybe Robert Kraft for punting their head coach that they really liked and not giving him a lot of time. This is why players play and managers manage. This is why owners do what they have to do because they've run, in theory, other multi-million-dollar or billion-dollar companies, and they know when someone is drowning as an executive. And when you're a head coach in the NFL, to me, you're still an executive. So they did what they had to do. And Kraft, by the way, listened to the players. You know, I joked all year long that they were building like a Chuck E. Cheese and a birthing center there so that a guy could grab a slice and check into his wife at halftime if she's going to pop out a kid and then go back out there and play second half. Now, I understand that's a ridiculous level of hyperbole, but have you seen what like Clemson and Alabama and Ohio State have built in just clouding these kids and their thoughts of what the facilities should be whenever they get into the NFL? The C-level owners were Seattle, the Giants, the Rams, Kansas City, Cleveland, and Cincinnati. Kansas City did poor last year because I do believe there was a promise of a new locker room, which never really came true. Because if I remember correctly, last year, Kansas City was engaged in negotiations with the city on a new stadium. So, the players got over it, and apparently this year they're a little better. And then there's the head coaches in this NFLPA survey. 28 of them got either an A or a B, A-, A+ thrown in there, In fact, there were 6 A+ that were handed out by the players to their head coaches. Washington, no shock. They won. Minnesota, won without Kirk Cousins. I can understand why they like their coach. Miami, I don't get that one. Maybe the players will look at the head coach and say, hey, can we figure out how not to lose to a thermometer every year? That'd be nice. Kansas City, Detroit, and then Atlanta. Detroit and Kansas City are a little different because they've proven they could do it year after year, and there really is that connection to their head coach. But Atlanta, you got an 8-9 record, and the players all love you, though, but you're under 500. Miami, kind of the same thing. You're sort of running in place. Oh, but the players love the guy. Well, is that maybe a part of the problem when you look at it and it's all said and done? Then you have the other A coaches. I mean, Seattle, San Francisco, Pittsburgh, the Rams. You know, you can go on and on and on. And the head coaches that did not get great grades, the Bears gave their head coach a C, and we know that there was a change in situation there. The Browns gave their head coach a C. That situation is only going to get worse. Same in Jacksonville and all that stuff. Here's would be my suggestion to the owners, ladies and gentlemen. Don't think about it too much. Don't overdo it. Don't overthink it. Your players are going to go up and down in terms of the way they feel. We'll talk some NBA next. A big night in the association. We'll preview with Joe Vardon of The Athletic.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
I am Gresh in for Gelb this afternoon on the Infinity Sports Network. 855-212-4227. 855-212-4227. We got a big night in the NBA this evening We got a lot of really good games. We got the 76ers and the Knicks. The Sixers are going in one direction. I don't know where the Knicks are going. We have the Spurs and the Rockets as well. And we got a lot to talk about in the association. And joining me now from The Athletic, of course, you can read him in the New York Times as well, Joe Vardon, who covers the NBA for those entities, is with Gresh in for Gelb on Infinity Sports Radio. Joe, how you doing, friend? What's up?
What's up, Andy? You caught me though, because you're saying, we got a great night in the NBA, and then you say the Sixers. I'm like, bruh.
Well, let's start there, because maybe what's great about them, Joe, is that there's chaos going on. We know what's going on with Joel Embiid. He's just all over the place. It was thought to be a very different kind of season in Philadelphia going in. So how about I just start with, how chaotic is that Philly situation right now?
It is so chaotic that there are other teams that are supposed to be tanking. They're not supposed to win this year. And they might end up in the 10 seed, and they can't believe how bad the Sixers are. Multiple teams. Multiple. It is like, when they got off to that terrible start and Joel's knee wasn't right, and then he pushed the reporter and, all that, you're thinking, okay, they stink now. They're 2-11, whatever. We all know that if they get into the play-in, that on paper they have the talent to get through a bracket and then scare the living daylights out of a 1 or a 2 seed. That's not true anymore. They're just old and hurt is what it looks like, and it doesn't feel like this is going to get better.
On the other end, you have the Knicks, who just can't beat the Celtics to save their life. They're not even, maybe matching up against Cleveland very well. I thought, Joe, the Knicks were built to be able to match up and try to take on the Celtics, and yet the Celtics have just whacked them the 3 times they played this year. Are the Knicks kind of stuck in that sort of third spot and banging their head against not a glass ceiling, but a real ceiling based on the way they're built?
Yeah, I don't know about stuck, but I know what you mean. I think we have to realize that they changed themselves. Like they were a different team, the last 2 years, and they were scrappy, and they came up on people, and they were a tough out in the playoffs, and they did it with defense. This team is not a good defensive team, and so I cut my teeth in the NBA on the LeBron Cavs, where they would screw around in March and then blow everybody out in April and May. So I would like to not write the Knicks off, but what we see from them is not good enough, and that they aren't as good as Boston, and they are not as good as Cleveland, and they aren't good enough on either side of the ball to compete with those teams right now.
Joe Vardon covers the NBA for The Athletic, with Gresh in for Gelb on Infinity Sports Network. I'm a New England guy. I like the Celtics. They're pretty good, pretty good. But you know what? The Pistons, by record of 32-26, are not bad. Joe, what do you see from the Pistons right now as, this team might finally take the jump and make the playoffs?
Oh yeah, the Pistons I think are going to make the playoffs. It is interesting though, and so far this hasn't happened. The Pistons have continued to look really good, but JB Bickerstaff, who is a friend of mine, and I really appreciated his time in Cleveland, but every single one of his Cavs teams struggled after the All-Star break, big time, and he actually had a team a couple years ago in Cleveland that had surprised the league, much as the Pistons have now, and that team just slid right into the play-in and didn't make it out. So I'm on guard against that now, but Cade Cunningham, obviously all-star, and he seems like he's taking off. They're a much more veteran team than they used to be. And the thing that JB does is he instills discipline, and he teaches young teams how to play. So, yeah, I mean, on my ballot, I would look at Kenny Atkinson as Coach of the Year with JB right behind him.
Interesting stuff. Are you seeing what you need to see from the Celtics to believe they're ready to make another run?
Yeah. I mean, I just think we are headed for a battle royale in the Eastern Conference Finals that maybe we haven't seen. Well, okay, fine. The Celtics Heat, they duked it out twice in the conference finals, and those were great series. Okay. So, yeah, I think we're heading for something like that because Boston, when you think about the size and the skill on the perimeter with Drew and Derek, and then, of course, Tatum and Brown, Porzingis changes them. Their bench is pretty good, and they're veterans, and Joe is a good coach. And then you match them up with Cleveland, who has remarkable switchable depth, and they have these two bigs that are so dynamic defensively, and then you have Evan Mobley blossoming before our eyes and shooting 40% from three. And Kenny Atkinson has just been brilliant with how he's handled that team. So yes, of course, yes, on Boston, yes, but it's almost a pick 'em right now between those two teams.
Joe Vardon covers the NBA for The Athletic, here with Gresh, who's in for Zach Gelb on the Infinity Sports Network. We know Luka is a Laker. I'll just leave it open-ended for you. What are your thoughts on Luka integrating with that Lakers team and kind of what we've seen so far?
Well, Luka Doncic is one of the top 3 basketball players that we have on earth. So he's going to be able to integrate with literally anyone. And then you put him alongside a basketball maestro, arguably the greatest player ever, who apparently still has something left in the tank at age 40. And the rest of the league has a problem. I'm just not surprised that Luka is catching on there. You could say, well, he's not shooting it great, and he's trying to find his way offensively, and that's fine. But keep in mind that when he and Kyrie Irving got together, he did the same thing too. Luka is a little bit shy when he gets paired with another superstar for the first time. But the Lakers are playing great, and they're defending, and LeBron is defending. He was the best player on the Olympic team from the start of the summer through the last game in Paris. He was the best player. Say what you want about Steph in those last 2 games. LeBron was the best, and he defended as well as he played on the offensive end. And I just didn't think he would do that for the Lakers this year. But he's turned the switch over the last month on that end, and the Lakers are winning because of it.
Do you think come playoff time, LeBron will be able to get Luka to dig in defensively the way that's needed to win at a high level? Because I know in talking to some of those Celtic guys last year, they were like, take it at Luka. He'll turn it down every time.
I mean, I think that is an entirely fair question. I guess I would I don't know how to respond because I am surprised that LeBron is defending right now. And so can he command other players to ratchet it up defensively? I don't know. I know that Jason Kidd was a good coach for him, but he hasn't been a remarkably strong coach on the defensive side, and maybe Luka had a lot to do with that. I don't know. JJ seems like he's got a pretty good pulse for what's going on there. And so, yeah, I mean, Luka's been to a finals now. He's been to 2 conference finals and a finals. He knows what it takes to win. And if the culture is a defensive culture, and the Lakers sort of preach that together, I think he'll give it a shot.
Talking NBA with Joe Vardon of The Athletic. The Warriors are playing a really nice brand of basketball with Jimmy Butler III. Don't know where the third popped out. I guess I wasn't paying attention. But, you're starting to hear people like Draymond Green saying, hey, we're going to win the NBA championship. That might be hyperbole, but are you buying in on this version of Golden State?
I liked them when they were 12-3, and it's because it's a championship organization. I think the world of Steve Kerr, I can't get enough of watching Steph play, but they had gotten too bogged down by opponents who knew that Steph was the only player really who was going to hurt them offensively. And now, the way they're set up, Jimmy is attracting attention, and he's giving Steph enough room. So I don't want to talk about a 9 seed, which I think is what they still are. Maybe they've climbed to 8. I didn't look at the standings today. But I don't want to talk about a 9 seed as a legitimate championship threat. I still have questions about their size. But what I will say is we don't know anymore what's going to happen in the West. And if you look at Oklahoma City, I think there may be a game behind Cleveland for the best overall record. Maybe. They're awesome. They're deep. And they know they're going to have a real tough first-round opponent. They know that. And I think that speaks to the work that the Lakers and the Warriors have done to really make the West interesting.
Golden State, by the way, 8th in the West. They are 15 and a half games back of Oklahoma City, but they're also a half game back of being in the 6th spot, which is where the Clippers find themselves. So, to the point, we really don't know what's going to happen with the West, and there could be even more shakeup coming there. Joe Vardon of The Athletic covers the NBA. Joe, thanks for the time. Great breakdown. Appreciate it. We'll catch up soon. Thank you.
Look forward to it.
There we go. Joe Vardon bringing up, the thing with Luka. Here's the thing for me with Luka, okay? First of all, I think the guy gets winded when he changes his mind. And I remember the people around Boston and around the Celtics organization who would say, hey, listen, Luka, offensively, he might be better than even Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. But the one thing the Celtics were convinced of to a moral certainty was that Luka would turn it down on the defensive end. And if you look at the amount of Celtic players last year who were completely unafraid to attack Luka Doncic, I like Derek White. Derek White has been a great piece for the Celtics and a great trade by Brad Stevens. But when that guy is unafraid to take it at Luka, when you have their forwards who, listen, you might not think Jaylen Brown's a great player. You might think he's in that really good category. Well, Jason Tatum's a great player. Jason Tatum's hand is stamped just like Luka's is. Luka's off to an all-NBA, a better start than Jason Tatum. But I would say this. Jason Tatum's a better winner because Jason Tatum commits to the other end of the floor, and he's committed to making his body be able to get through 100 games. And I'm not saying that Jason Tatum doesn't have the occasional drink. Maybe they pull a beer out of his hands. Or then again, with the way he's worked on his body, maybe they don't have to. And there's a reason you had people in Dallas plucking drinks out of Luka's hand to try to get him to kick into the next level. Now, offensively, Tatum might not be as complete as Luka, right? But it ain't even close. It ain't even close. When it comes to being an all-around basketball player, Jason Tatum is not afraid of Luka Doncic because he's not an all-around basketball player. But he looks at LeBron James very differently because even though our guy Joe Vardon just said, well, LeBron's playing defense, and maybe he doesn't do it all the time, here's what I can tell you about LeBron James. In a big moment, Game 7 on the road in NBA Finals, he's got one of the biggest defensive plays in the history of the game with that block off the glass and then taking it back the other way. And in that series, you saw LeBron dig in when he needed to. And I'm not saying Luka's got to be world-class level defender, But you can't be a turnstile. And here's the other thing, too. You can't be viewed as the guy that can be picked on. And right now, that's Luka still. Until proven otherwise, Luka Doncic has a little bit of championship credibility. But if it's not all on offense, you do not have a champion in Luka Doncic. That's why I ask about LeBron getting through to this guy. Because, and I'll use Jason Tatum as an example. Look at Jason Tatum when he came into the league at 19 years old. And he's 26, maybe about to turn 27 here soon. And he's played, 115 playoff games or something like that. Look at the way Tatum has worked on his body since coming in the NBA. And ask yourself the same thing about Luka. And you wonder why other teams and players are like, you know what? Take it to him. Because he don't want that smoke. If it's a three-point shootout or passing a basketball through a tiny little hole that's just big enough for the ball to go through, that is right up Luka's alley. Ask him to be tough. Ain't happening. 855-212-4227. You can also get me on social media everywhere, including the Tick and the Talk, at The Real Gresh, Gresh. Well, I know that we started hour one and talking a lot of football, but now, little head coaches, they can't figure out the tush push or the push tush or the tushy, whatever it is. And their little tushies need some help as well. So they're turning to the NFL to do the job for them. We'll get into this ridiculousness next. I am Gresh, in for Gelb on the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
We started this deal today talking about the quarterback carousel, everything going on in the NFL. The combine is going on. I am Gresh in for today and tomorrow for Gelb on Infinity Sports Network, 855-212-4227. I don't want to leave this guy hanging too long. I want to get to the Tush push and how certain NFL coaches, their tushies are chapped because they can't figure out how to stop that play. But I mentioned the number. I want you to call. Just wait on hold like my man Gary in Rocky Top, who wants to talk about Shadir Sanders. My man Gary, you're with Gresh. I'm in for Gelb on Infinity Sports Network. What do you have, pal?
Hey, Gresh, good to have you on today. First of all, with the tush push, damn it, every quarterback has a tush so they can be pushed, so what the hell's the problem here? I don't get it. As for Shadur, according to Dion, his daddy, for the last 2 years, he's been guaranteeing that he will be the first overall pick. But I hear a lot of people talking about this, saying that he's not really that quality, although there's not enough quarterback competition to be drafted that would knock him out of it. So what do you think? I've heard people say that his decision-making is just a bit slow. Maybe that's how he gets some of the sacks. What do you think about that? And what do you think about his dad? Will he be creating a bit of drama and interfering with some of the decisions like the Tennessee Titans might make because he wants him to go someplace else? What do you think there, Grayson? Thank you for the time, buddy.
Gary, I appreciate you, pal. Gary, of course, is out there. He's a trucker. He's hauling everything coast to coast, and we appreciate all the truckers out there who might be listening on Sirius XM Channel 158 or on the Odyssey app. Here's the thing with Shadir Sanders. To me, he's not a first-round pick. Plain and simple. He's going to be drafted in the first round because I think someone will be desperate for a quarterback and they'll take the kid, and I just think it will be a mistake unless he goes to a very good team where he can sit for a year. So on Shadir, I'm a hard second rounder, but realizing he's going to be drafted in the first round. In terms of Dion, Tennessee is not looking at Shadir Sanders, so Dion can just sit there and shut the hell up. I also think he's been coached by Dion. So that's a part of the reason why now, when you look at Shadir Sanders and being evaluated by the NFL, you realize everything the kid wasn't taught. You realize everything the kid can't do because all it's been is a campaign to pump up Shadir Sanders, the other Sanders who didn't even get invited to the combine. Was it Shiloh or Silo, whatever? And then Travis Hunter. And there was the thought that you had the best quarterback in college football and the best player in college football in Travis Hunter, and you can't even get to your conference championship game, Dion. There'd be a lot better coaches held to the standard of, well, you had two guys highly ranked up there. How in the world you can't even make the conference championship game? I digress. I'm not a big Dion fan. He's more into selling sunglasses than he is wins, in my opinion. But for Shadir Sanders, I don't want anything to do with that guy being my starting quarterback. Now, Gary did mention the Tush push, right? Which has been a massive thorn in the side for a lot of NFL teams going back a couple years because the Philadelphia Eagles have figured it out. Whatever that is, they figured out how to get this rugby scrum, and they got a quarterback that's pretty big. You know, like Jalen Hurts ain't small. He's really in a lot of ways, I think he's running back-ish, maybe even a little more than quarterback-ish, but I don't want to sound disrespectful to a guy who just quarterbacked a team to a world championship. But there's been one person out there who has been pretty open and been a critic over the years of the tush push, and that is Sean McDermott, who, whenever he got to the combine, reiterated once again his thoughts on why he doesn't like the play, which is really rooted in because he can't stop it. Go ahead, Stu.
To me, there's always been an injury risk with that play, and I've expressed that opinion for the last couple of years or so when it really started to come into play the way it's being used. So I just feel like, you know, players' safety and the health and safety of our players has to be at the top of our game, which it is. The way that the techniques that are used with that play, to me, have been potentially contrary to the health and safety of the players. And so, again, you have to go back, though, in fairness to the injury data on the play. But I just think the optics of it, I'm not in love with.
I don't know if there is a ton of injury data on that play. I don't think we have an epidemic in the NFL because of the tush push. And I'm not a Sean McVay guy. He irks me. And I'll be honest, he reminds me of someone that I used to work for that I can't stand. So I always have to try to take my own emotions out of evaluating stuff that Sean McDermott says because he looks and sounds like someone that I really don't like. Okay? And I'm just being honest with you now. Okay? However, Sean McVay has a 250-pound quarterback who is 6'5", and who is known for running a pretty good quarterback sneak. Now, I would think, and this is just me, because even though that, you know, McVay irks me because of my own PTSD, right? That if you maybe had Jalen Hurts, maybe you would do something similar. You have a different quarterback, so you do something a little different when you run your quarterback sneak. I think a part of the issue is that it's tough to stop and people can't figure it out, because there aren't enough, to be respectful, fat bodies on defensive lines anymore to be able to hold up against plays like that. It's actually smart. Todd Bowles was like, yo, what if a team does it well, don't take it out of the game, learn to stop it. And that's where I'm at too. And it's only one team, and I don't even know if it's Buffalo. I do believe the report I read yesterday said an unnamed team has kind of raised the objection here of, you know, should we ban the tush push, whatever in the world. I get it confused all the time. Mike and Stu in New York, you banning this? It's not even a discussion, right? Like, if you're on the competition committee, do you get this proposal and then laugh and just be like, next, and rip up the paper and move on?
Yeah, I would. I mean, to McDermott's point, if there is data that it's potentially going to cause significantly more injuries, then I guess I can understand it. But we haven't seen that. We haven't seen any teams going up against the Eagles say that it's dirty or that guys are getting more hurt on that play. I haven't seen guys getting hurt on that play. So I don't see the injury part of it. And outside of that, just like Todd Bowles said and so many other guys have said, if you don't like it, stop it. If there's only one team in the league who can do it and do it well, then stop them. It's like the Dolphins when they had the Wildcat with Ronnie Brown and Tony Spagnuolo, right? Like, if you don't like it or if you think that it's a cheat code, then either stop it or do it yourself. And that's it.
Stu, where you land on this?
I am with Mike. I just feel like if, you don't like it, you should stop it. That's just the bottom line. I just don't feel like we should change rules just because they have a play that works well. Like, if you have a 6'10 receiver that you're going to throw to 15 times a game, then what? Then it's like, you can only throw to him 10 times a game instead of 15? Like, you got to stop the play. That's where I land on that.
Nick Casario, the GM of the Houston Texans, you don't want to punish a team that's done something very well. So there are people in other organizations that are coming to defense of the Philadelphia Eagles in a situation like this. And it's just funny that of all people, it's McDermott, who physically has the other quarterback in the league that if you wanted to apply this strategy would probably pretty dadgum good at running the play the way Jalen Hurts does. And this happens every year. And to me, it's normally from just the losing end of it, right? I go all the way back. Let's go all the way back to 2003, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, 22 years ago or whatever. The New England Patriots won their second world championship, right? And there were two teams that were complaining about the two teams that made the Super Bowl that year. That year, the matchup was Carolina and New England. And New England had worked over Indianapolis because you can clutch, grab, and play, and, be physical, right? And then you had Philadelphia, ironically, was the team when Andy Reid was there that was complaining about the clutching and grabbing and the hits at the line of scrimmage and the physicality of the defensive backs of Carolina. And that's when we got into the examination of pass interference, grabbing at the line of scrimmage, things like that, because you had two teams that, quite honestly, were just riding the wambulance because they lost that year. And I do think there is a little bit of that with McDermott, even though he could take his massive-sized quarterback and go do what he wants to with him, and should, quite honestly. Just like the ladies do with Ack. They say, we can do anything we want with this guy. What a handsome fella. What a nice man. They flock to him, for crying out loud.
And then I woke up.
You have the best lines to my stupidity that you tickle me every time I get to work with you. Ack.
It takes one to know one, right?
Hey, there we go. I like it. Hey,
and
coming
I mean
up,
that in a complimentary form.
Oh, of course you do. Listen, you're the least malicey person that I know. I'm the other way. I'm the guy that says stuff walking out the door, for God's sakes. Anyway, we got to get into the night in the NBA. Celtics are in action. What is wrong with the Knicks? The 76ers are melting down. And I do have some thoughts on Golden State as well. But let's get updated on everything in the world of sports. Here is my guy, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, another big-name player has been granted permission to seek a trade. This time it's Harold Landry, the Titans linebacker, coming off a season in which he had 9.5 sacks and has over 31 in the last 3 seasons. Of course, the biggest pass rusher that's looking for a new home of his own account is Myles Garrett. Browns GM Andrew Berry said he does not want to trade him, and his head coach Kevin Stefanski is adamant about wanting him back.
I think the world of Myles. I understand the business of football, and I understand these things happen from time to time, but I expect Myles on our team this year, next year, the year after that, and so on. He's part of the present. He's a part of the future.
Matthew Stafford is available for the right price, but the Rams are keeping the door open for a return and would like him back if they can kind of work out a reasonable price for the two sides. Also, Deebo Samuel looking for a trade, and the 49ers said they have granted that request because they have a lot of respect for him. And GM John Lynch said they have also opened talks with Brock Purdy. Two of the NBA's hottest teams will meet in Detroit tonight. A one-winning streak will come to an end. The Pistons have won 7 straight and host the Celtics, who are coming off their 6th in a row last night. I'm Rich Ack.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Infinity Sports Network. That's Infinity Sports Network to follow us on Instagram.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
You can also go to Infinity Sports Network on YouTube and watch me do this show if you want. Forgot to move my lamp out of the way there as I got out of the old home studio for a moment. I am Gresh in for Gelb here on the Infinity Sports Network. I implore you, YouTube, Twitter/X, Instagram, the Tick and the Talk, where you might even see me dancing for crying out loud. You can follow me on social media at The Real Gresh, Gresh. We're going to get to some football at the top of the hour. In fact, a story that I'm just kind of coming across on Twitter. NFL considering changes to regular season overtime. Yeah, I'm going to have a lot to say on that because I hate what they did with overtime in the postseason and all that. But nevertheless, we will get to that coming up in a mere 20 minutes with Gresh in for Gelb here on the Infinity Sports Network. Tonight in the NBA, we've got a smattering of games that are pretty good. You know, I tried to pump them up. I'm pumping up his league, and Joe Vardon was like, "No, I don't know these games that great tonight." Well, I'm looking at the Celtics and the Pistons right now. For those of you who are a degenerati, like me, on ESPN Bet, it's just the first one I looked at, Celtics are -4.5. The over-under is 226.5. And these are the teams that have the second and the third longest active win streaks in the NBA. Celtics have won 6 in a row. The Pistons have won 7 straight, trailing only the Cavs, who have won 8 in a row. And the last time either of the Pistons or the Celtics lost was the Celtics on February 6th to the Mavericks. So one win away from their longest win streak of the year. And look, I professed earlier today that, yes, I am a Boston fan, and I like the way they're rounding into shape a little bit. I have a theory on the NBA that I've really had no reason to change for a while because I do think it's how teams manage it. If you're really good, Lakers maybe got away with this at times. Golden State has gotten away with this. The Celtics had to do it this year. If you're really good, an elite level team, it doesn't matter where you're seated. Honestly. You know, we make a big deal about the number 1 seed and what it could mean and the number 2 seed and all this kind of stuff. If you're a championship team and your hand is stamped, you can go in and out of the club as much as you want. You know, you're in and out because there's a ring or 2 or 3 or in some instances 5 on your finger. Those are the teams who don't have to worry about the seeding when it's all said and done. When the Boston Celtics started this year, for me, I didn't care if they were the 1 seed or the 6 seed. There's only one thing for me that I care about relative to the Celtics, and I would dare say it applies in Cleveland, maybe for some delusional Knicks fans. I think in Milwaukee, you try to talk yourself into this. In Golden State, you're talking yourself into this, and that is, are we healthy? Are we healthy? Because when you look at the Celtics roster, I mean, Kristaps Porzingis went out during the NBA Finals last year, and the guy gutted his way back to be able to give you minutes in a closeout game. No championship mentality there from a guy like Kristaps who had never really been in that spot before. Because in that environment, that's the standard. Like Tatum and Brown have done a good job of setting standard in terms of this is what we do here. And there is a lot of history with the Celtics organization that you do feel when you're a player there. Just ask a guy like Kevin Garnett. So for me with the C's, all I care about is everybody is upright and ready to go. Because I know they have 6 people that are difficult to match up with. They might have the 6th man of the year in Peyton Pritchard. They got a guy in Sam Hauser who is, getting paid now, so I don't say underrated anymore because he's getting a check. And then you have another big guy in Luke Cornett who's willing to use his fouls, get in the way. He was a 3-point shooter, Luke Cornett, at one point in time. Turned himself into an inside player and an inside presence. They got 9 guys due the Celtics they can saddle up and ride with. And that's not even talking about Jordan Walsh and people like that. You really want to get into the depths of the bench of some kids who played this year. It's the same thing in Golden State. That's why I admit, whenever we were talking to Joe Vardon earlier, I asked him how I felt about Golden State because I guess I'm kind of taking the cheese on Golden State a little bit. Jimmy Butler has come in and has fit in seamlessly with Golden State. And I understand the whole point that was made from Joe earlier of this happens with Jimmy Butler. Yeah, this happens with a lot of guys. You get the best version of them right away, and then you have to figure out how to manage them as the seasons go on. But, Butler got, a 1 or 2 year extension, whatever it was. So they're going to maybe throw a little, they give him another year of Whoppers with some cheese. Maybe put an extra slice of cheese or two on the Whopper. But be able to keep that guy happy and motivated and try to take advantage of the significant investment that the Golden State Warriors ownership group have made. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, let's just remember a couple short years ago, their tax bill got so onerous, they sold about 5% of the franchise to be able to pay off that hawk to keep that team together. That's commitment, ladies and gentlemen. It really is. Meanwhile, the Celtics ownership, for better or worse, are looking to get the heck out of there because they realize that big tax bill's looming, and the Grossbeck family, they don't want to be paying any of that. The Trailblazers are at the Wizards. Blazers are under 500. The Wizards stink. For the Wizards, it's more of, can they keep trucking towards what might be the number one pick? The Thunder, I think, have a layup tonight. They're in Brooklyn to take on the Nets. Thunder, based on certain analytics, Thunder's about a 91% chance to win this game. They are 17.5-point favorites. Oklahoma City have not been 17-point road favorites since at least 1990 and 91, which means, of course, you got to go back to them being another franchise. Hawks are taking on the Heat. Clippers and the Bulls. Here's the thing with the Clippers. 3 straight road losses for the Clips. Lost 5 straight against the Eastern Conference. You look at the Clippers and you see them on a sheet of paper, right? Well, you watch me on the internet, right? You see them on a sheet of paper. And you say, wow, that was a pretty decent team. That was a good team. And they're 31-26. And there's always right? Do we need to look up, boys, what Kawhi Leonard's got this week? Knee, ankle, uncle, vacation, whatever. It's amazing, this guy. He's supposed to be, a championship-level player. He's got 3 rings, and yet the guy can't get out there. So I'm looking at Golden State, and as I mentioned, the Clippers are the 6th seed. It feels like the Clippers are a sitting duck right now. And it feels like there's momentum with Golden State in terms of them getting into this sort of top 6. But this is where we're really going to start to get teams like Golden State and Boston, and can Denver start to, pull it together and play a better brand of basketball, make sure everyone is getting healthy. Because when you look at the Western Conference compared to the Eastern Conference, I think in the West, you have as many, and this is me jumping with both feet into the Golden State Warriors pool, right? You have the Warriors. You have to take the Lakers seriously of being at least a champion, a conference championship round contender, considering they do have Luka, who, again, soft defensively, great offensive player, and you have LeBron James. You ain't getting away from, LeBron easily. And then you have Denver, and you have Oklahoma City. Here's my problem with Memphis. I just don't know what I'm getting with them at certain times. I think they're mid on the road at best. They're 2 games above 500 on the road, whereas Denver, 18-11 on the road. Those, to me, are indicators of teams that are ready to win championships and to go into anybody's barn. Sorry for the hockey reference. Go into anybody's barn and go get a win. I'm Gresh in for Zach Gelb here on the Infinity Sports Network, breaking down some NBA thoughts. 855-212-4227. 855-212-4227. You look at these standings now, and you got Golden State in 8th. I do think if they get it right, you mean to tell me if Golden State starts to play great, and they're a 6 seed. Now they'd have to match up against Denver. That'd be tough. But if you're Golden State and say you match up in the first round against the Lakers instead, Golden State can win that series. I'd make them an underdog against Denver. That'd be a bad matchup. But if they caught Memphis, Memphis is maybe favored in that series a little bit. But if Golden State ends up playing their way to a point to where they can play Memphis, okay, now we're talking. Now that's a good matchup, I think, for Golden State. And, of course, you got to take Oklahoma City seriously. But in the East, it's a 2-team race, friends. And there is no one who is doing there's no one doing the old, come from behind round turn 3 or 4 of the horse race and then all of a sudden going to catch up from behind. No. The Knicks do not have it. It's evident. They're just a smidge off. Indiana's a nice team. 8 games over 500, like Tyrese Halliburton. After that, I'm not feeling a team that's getting ready to ramp up and peak. You have Milwaukee. They brought in the good doctor, Glenn Rivers, to try to fix everything. That hasn't worked. So now they're nothing more than a couple games over 500, and they're going to have to hope that a guy like Giannis just gets really hot. And then you have the Pistons, who are just too young. I hate to say it, but haven't we already learned in the NBA that, if you're a team that is coming of age, let's say, lots of ways you could take that. But if you're a team like the Pistons who is coming of age, you have to knock on that door a couple different times. You have to go through the disappointment. There are steps. There's levels to this thing, son. And that's to me where Detroit is at. But for the first time in a long time, I think if you're a Pistons fan, you have a little bit of hope. And then there is no hope that 7 through 10 in the East are going to be able to do anything. The Magic, the Hawks, the Heat, and the Bulls are all under 500. Just rubbish. I mean, really. It's for just rubbish teams. You can look at Orlando's got Paolo. You have the Hawks who have Trae Young. The Heat traded away their best player. And the Bulls are 23-35, yet the number 10 seed. So what are we really doing here at the end of the day? In the West, it feels like there's about 4 to 5 teams that can shake things up. In the East, it's more like, okay, what's the date in which the conference finals start between Cleveland and Boston? And if anybody beats Cleveland along the way, they're likely to get slayed by the Celtics. And I wonder if what will ultimately be the Celtics' biggest advantage going into an NBA Finals will be lots of rest, because they could put this thing to bed pretty quickly. Final hour of Gresh in for Gelb, the latest from the Combine and the NFL, next on Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Final hour of Gresh and for Gelb today. I will be with you tomorrow as well, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, you can get us anywhere. Sirius XM channel 158. Anywhere you can get an internet connection on the Odyssey app. And you can watch on YouTube as well. Just search Infinity Sports Network on the YouTube. And you can watch me do this from my incredibly ostentatious studio. And I only do that to poke fun at Gelb because no one else in the world, even old people, uses the word ostentatious. But another story for another day. The Combine is getting ready to crank up in Indianapolis. Yes, the Shirts and Shorts Olympics, ladies and gentlemen, where people, fans, who have not watched college football all year long, try to, grab a couple of pamphlets, a booklet, and maybe search on the internet. And then they, watch the Combine and draw conclusions on guys who really aren't doing a lot of stuff that is breakdownable on film, I'll say very poorly here on national radio. 855-212-4227. But boy, oh boy, when I look at the news that is not only coming out in the NFL, but in the Combine, holy heck, it is moving fast for crying out loud. And Big Mike, yay! Big Mike down in New York is going to walk through some of these stories for all of us to be able to comment on. Big Mike, what's up?
What is going on? It's like a flurry of activity every one of these GMs and coaches, apparently, except for Kyle Shanahan, who's not there, has something very important to say before we get into the shorts and shirts Olympics.
It's amazing. I look and see that apparently there's something going on with the 49ers and Brock Purdy. You mentioned the GM, so of course, here we go. We've got John Lynch out there saying that the talks have begun on a deal with Brock Purdy. Now listen, let me ask you guys. Do you want to be in the Brock Purdy quarterback business long term?
It's tough. If you had asked me before this year, I would have said 100%. I know there were injuries on that offense. I know Debo was unhappy and Ayuk got hurt and McCaffrey wasn't around for much of the year. But Purdy was one of those guys I thought was like he was just on a meteoric rise. This year just felt like he hit a plateau. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's why he was Mr. Irrelevant. But right now, I'd be very hesitant. He has like that it factor that makes me think, okay, he could be the guy, but there's something missing this year that made me really question whether or not he can be.
And it's interesting to me with the 49ers because they had Jimmy Garoppolo, they got to a certain point, and then that was it. Brock Purdy, same thing. They got to a certain point, and then that was it. And it's similar but different because the quarterbacks are different, but it's kind of the similar sort of situation where you just can't break through. And, I always thought Kyle Shanahan at some point would say, screw it, go get me like Aaron Rodgers for a year or go trade for Matthew Stafford or something like that and try to do like, what McVay would do and to really go trade for the upgrade. Problem is they paid everybody else around Brock Purdy. Now you got to pay Brock Purdy, and somebody told me you're looking at $55 million. I just can't do it. I cannot give Brock Purdy that kind of dough. And if you're the 49ers, at what point do you kind of get sick of, hey, our head coach has done a great job with these quarterbacks, but we need somebody maybe with some special skills? I just wonder if at some point that the 49ers kind of draw the line and say, all right, we got to fix this permanently.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, Shanahan's one of those guys who thinks he can win with anybody. I know they tried to get Stafford, but McVay just swooped in and hung out with him down in Mexico City or wherever they were.
Yeah, they went in Mexico. Yeah, and they had something to offer in Jared Goff, too. That helped get that deal done, and look at what Goff has done in Detroit.
Absolutely. Who knows? Maybe Trey Lance could have been the guy back then. But
oh, my. Hey! I went and traded for Trey Lance, gave up fourth-round pick because I want people to know that I'm just not a great businessman. I'm Jerry Jones, Dallas Cowboys. I'm trying to put together a football team so that way whenever I'm not on earth anymore, everybody thinks of me being a football team person. Man. That guy, good grief. Anyway, what's next?
Jerry, you're on the phone? Holy cow, I can't believe I booked that. I am much better of a producer than I thought I was.
Listen, let me tell you something. If your guy doesn't ask the right questions, I'm just going to say you're fired. And I'll go get me some different people to ask me the questions I want to be asked here early in the morning. I'll get me my hot cake and McMuffin. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, speaking of the 49ers and John Lynch, he also said that Debo had asked for a fresh start, and I think we'll honor that. So it seems like the 49ers, there's a lot of guys around the league, Myles Garrett included, who have been requesting trades. And it seems like the 49ers are actually going to make that come true for Debo. And it's interesting with Ayuk coming off the injury and McCaffrey and all that, getting rid of Debo, who kind of gained a little bit of weight. Maybe that window for the 49ers might slowly be closing. I don't know.
Yeah, and when you look at Debo, this would be the time to be able to move on from him. I only see a dead cap number of about $15 million in having signed this guy, and that's if Spot Track is right. That it would be it'd be about $31 million in dead money, but they could chop it up, and oh my goodness, I mean, the 49ers did what fans want teams to do, which is to go out and sign their guys and keep everybody. And then you realize there's one guy that's got to get a big chunk and a lion's share of the dough if you're going to keep him, like Brock Purdy. And people like Deebo Samuel become expendable. I'm with you. Deebo was a unique fit in the 49ers offense. But if you said, what is the one thing he does really well? Like, is he a number one wide receiver? Is he a number two tailback? And can you find all these different ways to use the dude? And I don't know. You got to be really creative and want to fit that guy into your offense. It's just a matter, I think now, Big Mike, of the evaluation of what's left for this guy. And I don't know. I'd be in big buyer beware mode in terms of messing around with Deebo Samuel.
100%. I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. He is a good friend of the show, though. He and Zach have what you call a brother-brother relationship. They're as close as you can be.
Wow. Yeah, Gelb's got some interesting friends.
Yeah, or maybe not. Debo may have hung up the phone on him at one point.
That's big respect. Yeah, I once, on the day Nomar Garcia pop-up retired, I called him a loser to his ear when we did an interview with him because, I mean, really, the Red Sox didn't take off until they got rid of that guy. And, that went over well. So I have big respect for being hung up on or flipped off or told to whiz off. So good job by Gelb.
And for the record, I just flipped you off now behind the camera, so it worked out perfectly. So
totally fine. Yeah, you're a friend, so it doesn't hurt my feelers. You know what I mean? It's only people that I don't know who are like doing it to me that I sit in the corner and suck my thumb for 5 minutes.
Now, you did bring this up earlier that the NFL is considering changing the regular season OT rules to match the postseason rules, which I guess both teams get a possession, first team to score a touchdown, yada, 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 fun. What are your thoughts?
I hated the fact that they messed around with the overtime rule because somebody didn't get to touch the football whenever Kansas City played Buffalo, and I could go on and on about that. This is professional football, right? And they're trying to make everything fair and equitable. How about this? If you're worried about an overtime that is sudden death, then be more aggressive in trying to win the game. And I do think, Mike and Stu, that we have more coaches in the NFL than ever before who are aggressive, who don't want to find themselves in that spot. I hated that we changed it for the postseason. It was inevitable that it was going to happen for the regular season because I think there is an appetite for a lot of the younger head coaches, instead of looking at it and saying, no, it's pro football, this is the way it should be, it's we want to make sure that we have an opportunity to touch the ball as well. Defense has to matter. And we're just doing more and more and more, not only in sports, but in the NFL in particular, where we're making it tougher to play defense and we're de-emphasizing it more and more. That's why teams like Philly, who draft a bunch of fat bodies up front to whip your tail, are winning a world championship. I hate any changes to the overtime stuff. Where do you guys land on this?
You know, honestly, I'm okay with it, to be honest with you. I know it sounds, the sudden death of it was kind of fun for a while, but there is something to be said. The more they take away defensive, the teeth
emphasis
of the defense, the more they make this an offensive league and make penalties and everything revolve around the offense. It's impossible to stop a good team in overtime from scoring at all. So I like the idea of giving both teams a possession, giving both teams an opportunity, because at the end of the day, like, the NFL's made this an offensive league. Let's let the offensive win this.
Yeah, I'll be interested to hear the discussions on it. And although Pete Carroll did walk back in the door, there are now less head coaches that could influence the competition committee who have real, I'm talking like Mike Tomlin, right? Like, if Tomlin's going to speak the way Belichick did, a lot of people are going to listen. Now we're going to have a bunch of young coaches in there. This change is definitely happening. Plus, I think the NFL wants to be able to say to their TV partners, hey, look, even when we get to the end of these games, we're going to create some drama for you. So I hate it, but I know that it's coming down the pike. What else do we got, Mike?
Well, Liam Cohen is the new coach of the Jaguars, and we've heard the Jags all week talk about how good they think Trevor Lawrence is and how his ceiling hasn't been reached. Well, Liam Cohen took another step forward, saying he's our guy and that we want to have Trevor Lawrence's input on the roster. Now, I understand if it's Patrick Mahomes or maybe even Josh Allen, but you're really getting Trevor Lawrence's input on the roster?
So I know Liam Cohen. In fact, I've known Liam since probably he was 17, 18 years old. just a quick sort of backstory here. When I moved to Rhode Island in 1990, I played football. I joined the golf team because 16-year-old me tried to play baseball, and there was a guy who, I'm not lying, would bust my chops about wearing a hat backwards, and one day I pulled a nutty, told him what time it was, and joined the golf team. The irony of this is that Liam Cohen's dad, Tim, was the head football coach at Exeter West Greenwich High School and the golf coach. So I got to know Tim, so I got to know Liam. I called Liam's games at UMass. I've played golf with Liam. I've known this kid for a while. This is the collegeizing of the NFL a little bit. And to me, it's too much. If I talked to Liam, I would say, why? Why would you come out and make a statement like that you're going to include the kid in at least getting his thoughts? Now, doing it privately is one thing. Putting it on blast and making it think that this guy has a ton of influence. Now, I also think it kind of puts Trevor Lawrence in a bad spot because guys are going to be leaning on him. Hey, how am I supposed to get my money if you don't throw me the ball? Hey, you got stroke with management. How about you go over and tell the head coach that you think you need me? Bit of a rookie mistake, in my opinion, from my guy Liam. And, Mike, you said it. Why would I be listening to Trevor Lawrence at this point? Hey, what do you think in passing? That's one thing. The whole influence and give me thoughts on the roster and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It feels like, unfortunately, it's a recipe for disaster versus success in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I agree. I like Liam, and I think that they can get more out of Trevor Lawrence. And they do have talent on the team. They just need to be able to put it together. And there's something about Trevor Lawrence that is just unexplained. He seems to have all the tools, and when he puts it together, he looks elite, and then he just falls back. And it's been the same roller coaster ride since the second he got into the league. And there's no explaining. He's been through various coaches, and no one can seem to solve the problem of what is Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, well, at least Liam Cohen has not gone to the lengths of both Ben Johnson, the coach of the Chicago Bears, nor Mike Vrabel, the now head coach of the New England Patriots. And apparently NFL head coaches are so horny to win that they are willing to put their manhood in jeopardy. This was Ben Johnson talking, I do believe, with the crew of Pardon My Take on, what would happen if he won it all? Take a listen to this.
If there was a button that you could press, and if you pressed the button, the Bears would win 10 Super Bowls, but one random Bears fan would die, would you press that button?
Whew. I already gave up my life, so as long as they build a statue being like, he died for 10
Can I not just give a body part instead?
Yeah.
Pinky?
Yeah, which
Pinky.
body part would you sacrifice?
Well, I've got the 3 kids. My wife is already telling me what I need to do next. So I guess we can go with the testicles.
That
right?
testicles,
That works. Done.
Wait,
She said I'm good.
You didn't have to do both of them. You could have just said one.
One's fine.
Okay, just one.
All right, so he didn't include the twig, but he said he would sacrifice the giggleberries. Now let's go back to Pardon My Take, talking to Mike Vrabel when the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, when he said this.
Would you cut your off for a Super Bowl?
Oh, been married 20 years. Yeah, probably.
You've got 3.
As a player. I guess we'll be married for 20 years one day.
Would you? If you came home holding a bag of ice, and Jen was like, "Oh, honey, what'd you do?"
Like, I thought you already got fixed.
I made the ultimate sacrifice. I had to cut my off, honey. We're gonna win a Super Bowl. She'd be like, all right. Or would she be upset?
She'd probably be on board.
She would be like, "Do you want me to do it? Do you want to do it now?
Do you want to do it now?"
I made the ultimate sacrifice.
She's like warming up a knife in the fire, like getting ready to go.
So there you go. This would be like a headline, right, boys? 2 of 32 NFL head coaches say they would jeopardize their genitals to win a world championship. Back to you, Pete. I mean, holy cow. That's a little too much. I like winning. I want my team to win. I don't know if I want anybody, lopping off anything of real importance to be able to try and get that done. But it's good to know that those kind of crazies still win in the NFL. I will tell you one coach who I do not think will sign up for that, and that would be Bill Belichick. nevertheless. I'm Gresh, in for Zach Gelb on the Infinity Sports Network. We're going to break down some of these younger players who get ready for the Combine. Ted Nguyen of The Athletic does a fantastic job on Twitter of breaking down tape and explaining things in really the simplest of forms. We'll talk about the Combine kids next with Ted. I'm Gresh, in for Zach Gelb on the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
All the Shorts and Shirts Olympics are about to begin in Indianapolis. And no, I'm not denigrating the combine whatsoever, but for those that are in the NFL and the scouting world, the tape has been watched. A lot of this is now sort of getting around these guys. Yes, putting them through some testing, but talking to them and then maybe going back to the tape to sort of reaffirm what you thought on a certain player. And I'm very excited to talk to the guy who's going to join us now. I am Gresh, in for Zach Gelb on the Infinity Sports Network. And there are a lot of people out there who use and abuse the All-22, but they don't explain it the way this guy does. Ted Nguyen is breaking it down all the time via the film, via the X's and O's for The Athletic at FB_film analysis. I'm a big fan of this guy. He does a great job. Ted Nguyen is with Gresh here on Infinity Sports Network. Ted, good morning, man. Or excuse me, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for the kind intro. I'm just at the combine, or I'm getting ready to leave the combine, but it's been a good week.
So let me ask you, to your trained eye, what is the position group that you, Ted, will really be diving in on and trying to do a lot of work? Is there a position group that stands out to you that you really want to get more intel on?
Well, I typically look at the quarterbacks first with most drafts. This year in particular, like, it's not a very strong group at the top, but there are a bunch of guys that are kind of that middle tier that are interesting because, you know, maybe there aren't a bunch of guys that teams feel comfortable reaching for in the first round after the first two guys go off the board with Cam Ward and Shadir Sanders. But there's a second class of guys like Jason Dart, Will Howard, and a bunch of interesting quarterbacks that teams could be interested in those mid-rounds.
Do you think there will be a consensus number 3 quarterback behind Shadir Sanders and Cam Ward? Or are you expecting some fluctuation, maybe either team to team or evaluator to evaluator, on who the number 2 quarterback really is behind Cam Ward?
I think there will be some fluctuation, but I think mostly people will say that, you know, Shadir Sanders, or people will end up having Sanders as their second quarterback. I think the number 3 spot, I think there will be a lot more fluctuation there. I think Jalen Milroe would be an interesting quarterback, but I think there will be some teams that aren't interested in developing a quarterback that needs a lot of time to develop. You know, we saw Anthony Richardson, who is kind of a similar project. He's kind of struggling right now to find his footing. The Colts are kind of struggling to give him enough time that he needs to develop. But there's also Jason Dart, who has an interesting skill set. Who has an interesting skill set as well. There's some guys that like the show. I forgot what school he's from. But there's just like a bunch of interesting group quarterbacks in that group that it just depends on what you're looking for.
Ted Nguyen of The Athletic here with Gresh, in for Zach Gelb on the Infinity Sports Network. Ted is the purveyor of truth in terms of using the All-22. And, Ted, I look at this group of offensive tackles, and, you know, in terms of top 100s, there's a lot of them from number 4 arguably to number 99. As you see it, I know we got Will Campbell, we have Kelvin Banks, there's a batch of other guys maybe towards the back end of the first round, but who are the 1 or 2 offensive tackles that stand out to you in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really dug into the tackle group that much. after the Super Bowl is when I really start getting into these draft prospects. So I'm just trying to catch up on these guys right now. So I'm not super. I can't give you a great in-depth answer about the tackle group.
What are you hearing about the O-line group? It feels like there is some depth there. Is that kind of just the cursory feel that you've gotten in terms of the way people have been talking about these O-linemen?
Yeah, from what I've heard, it just doesn't seem like it's going to be as much of a top-heavy group as last year when there was a big run on tackles in the first round. I don't think we're going to see that. Maybe we'll see one or two or maybe three tackles in the first round, but we're definitely not going to see a huge run on tackles like we did last year. Maybe there's some better depth in the mid rounds, but it doesn't seem like a top-heavy group.
Ted Nguyen of The Athletic here with me on the Infinity Sports Network. Where would you play Travis Hunter at the pro level?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that he has such special instincts at corner, and when you have the ball skills that he does, I just think he could be a really special defender, and it's just too hard to play that many snaps in the NFL, so I would have a special package of plays for him on offense, but I think I would mainly start him at corner and then just find a way to work him in offense.
I know that the phrase generational talent doesn't get used very often. I thought the one player in this draft, Ted, who was the generational talent was Travis Hunter, but a lot of people are kind of talking about that way with Abdul Carter, the edge player from Penn State. Is that hype? Are you buying it? Is Abdul Carter as special as some are trying to pump him up to be?
Yeah, I mean, I really, really like Abdul Carter, and I think he just reminds people of Michael Parsons, that ability to play multiple positions, that elite athleticism off the edge. So I think people are looking at a guy that could come in and just give you 12 plus sacks off the edge, and if you could get that right off the bat, you're going to have the ability to go number one. So I definitely think he's up there as far as the quality of prospects.
Ted, one question for you that I have is, with the defensive linemen, it feels like we've sort of morphed over the last 5 years as to what different teams are looking for. And then you have Jalen Carter and Chris Jones, who help teams win world championships, and they're kind of that bigger, penetrating tackle who can wreak havoc on the inside, not that prototypical big, fat body, let's call him, right? Do you think those profile of defensive tackles, is everybody going to start looking for them like we always see the league do in overreacting to the way a team or two wins a championship? Might we see a little bit of extra value put on those interior defensive linemen that can really make an impact?
Yeah, I think so. I think just finding those interior rushers and completing that front four where you can just rush forward like the Eagles can without blitzing, and that's always going to be intriguing. So I don't think defensive tackles will overtake edge rushers as far as positional value. But if you can, if you have one that a top prospect that you think can develop into one of those guys, yeah, those guys could go, top five for sure.
Wow. Ted Nguyen of The Athletic. Ted, thanks for the breakdown, man. Travel safe. We'll catch up soon.
Thanks for having me on.
There we go. Ted Nguyen of The Athletic. He does a great job on the All-22. And let me give you a little bit just on the offensive tackles, because I hate to sound like an old head, but they're always you got a quarterback and a wide receiver, and that's all you need to be able to win in the NFL. And, the new way of looking things, right, where it's all offense. Well, it's nice to have an offense, but when you don't have bigs who have the ability to be able to protect those skill people, then, we saw what happened to Kansas City even in the Super Bowl, and they had some all-pro guys there who were dinged up and either playing out of position. But I do think that once everybody breaks it down, There's going to be the kid Will Campbell from LSU, where there's going to be some question as to whether he's a guard or a tackle. And I would say this. I can just use an example that I am aware of. A bunch of years ago, the New England Patriots drafted a guy out of Colorado named Nate Solder. If you're a Giants fan, you know about Nate Solder, right? Well, this guy's 6'7.5". I remember meeting him as a rookie, and the guy I was working with at the time was a former NFL quarterback, and we looked at each other and be like, this guy's like a power forward. He don't look like no tackle. Well, Nate Solder, big guy, they played him inside because the Patriots had Matt Light. So maybe Will Campbell starts as a guard, but ultimately slides out to tackle. Then you have Kelvin Banks, and somebody will definitely fall in love with that guy. But then you got a group of guys from, depending on the rankers that you look at, from 20 to maybe 50. Josh Simmons from Ohio State, Josh Connerly of Oregon, that's a guy I really like. The Savianea, again, you're going to give me a big Polynesian guy? Sign me up. He's from Arizona. I think there will be that kind of later first round run on some offensive tackles. I don't think the quarterbacks are going to get gobbled up. I think the O-linemen are ultimately going to get gobbled up. And keep an eye on a kid from Boston College, Ozzie Trapillo. The only reason I bring him up, he's 6'8", 310. And he's raw. He's young. Somebody's going to take this guy, give him 3 hots and a cot, beef him up a little bit, and turn him into what I think will ultimately be maybe an 8-year right tackle. He's got to find a little oomph, need a little nastiness, and maybe that can be coached out of him. But you get that kid up to 330 pounds. Oh, man, you at least have a specimen that could profile to be really good in the NFL. I can't believe I'm about to say this on national radio. I'm going to end on hockey. However, not what you think. We are not talking X's and O's. We're talking about scoring and a story that is flying so far under the radar, I'm actually shocked, even though it does come from the sport of hockey. We will tell you all about it next. Always shocking, never disappointing. Ready to get you updated on everything in the world of sports. Here's Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network, Sports Flash.
Well, the 49ers have a lot of roster decisions. They said they will accommodate Deebo Samuel's trade request. GM John Lynch also saying that they have begun negotiations with, or I should say talks at least, with Brock Purdy on an extension. There are a couple of good defensive players currently available. Yesterday, the Commanders gave Jonathan Allen permission to seek a trade. Today, the Titans doing the same for Harold Landry, the 28-year-old Pro Bowler coming off a season in which he had 9.5 sacks. Jets owner Woody Johnson, the only one to receive an F in the annual NFLPA report cards, and that coming from his own players. The Jets organization ranked 29th in the league, while the Vikings and Dolphins received the best overall marks. The Celtics go for their second win in as many nights and 7th straight. They're in Detroit to face a much-improved Pistons team that has won its last 7, while the Thunder are in Brooklyn tonight, the top seed in the Western Conference, coming in off an overtime loss on Monday to Minnesota. Chet Holmgren is expected back after sitting that one out. College action, top-ranked Auburn hosts Ole Miss. The Tigers have a 2-game lead in the SEC with 4 left. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on X. Our handle is INF Sports Network. That's INF Sports Network on X.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh my God, we're back again.
Oh, man. Mike, does that kill you? Like, Stu, does that kill you to play that?
It used to, but now I'm so used to it that it's just
you're
part.
beaten down. Yeah. No, because that's And they're out of tune and everything, and I don't know.
Yeah.
Awful. Oh, just, man. And Zach's too big to be, like, trying to, dance like them and stuff like that. He's, he's my size minus 100 pounds. Well, actually, I don't know. Is he 6'6"? Just right around there.
No, he's probably like 6'2", 6'3".
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
I don't think 6'6". What do you think, Stu?
I would say 6'3", 6'4".
I was going to say, because I'm a good 6'5", at one point I was 6'6", and then now I'm probably down to 6'5" or whatever. But I'm sneaky big because I'm wider than most people, which is a nice way of saying I'm big boned and fat. And, but yeah, they're like, oh, you're not that tall. So I walk up on there like, oh, wow, okay. So it can be visually, maybe Gelb, because he's thin, he might be able to pull it off, but I don't know. It'd feel like a lot of bird weirdness going on or something like that. Anyway.
Well, I mean, I'm like 4 feet tall, so it's hard for me to determine people's height above me. So everybody above, 5'5" looks like a giant to me.
If we were to break this up as a tag team match, it would be like you and Gelb against me and Stu, or me and you against Gelb and Stu, or something like that. You know what I mean? And then Ack would have to be the referee. Now that's worth the price of admission right there. We put Ack in the striped, referee shirt and stuff like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust it. Ack's going to hit one of us in the back with a steel chair and pin us himself.
Somebody could slide the foreign object right out of the ring, and Ack doesn't see it, turns around and counts 1, 2, 3, and everybody's like, boo! He takes all the heat. Oh, I could sign up for that. Hey, it's time to answer our Ask the Pros question of the day, brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. It's from Tony in Chattanooga. Are you rooting for Ovechkin to break Gretzky's goal record? I totally am. And I think the part for me that we're going to get into is I can't believe this story is kind of flying under the radar right now. You could submit a question by tweeting at INFSportsNet or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag AskThePros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. And we waited until the end of the show to get into this one because I know that when I was going back and forth with Big Mike on a text earlier today, I brought up the fact that this Ovechkin story is, for my money, kind of flying under the radar, right? And for those of you who are not puckheads, Washington Capitals forward Alex Ovechkin scored his 883rd career goal last night against Calgary. So, and yes, I said it like a Canadian. Ovi is a mere 12 goals away from passing Wayne Gretzky's all-time NHL goals record of 894. So did a little digging on this and a little research on it. So right now, Alexander the Great's current season goals pace is 0.71. So that means, going by that, Alex Ovechkin needs 17 games to pass the Great One. Now, if that pace holds up, it would actually mean that Alex Ovechkin will have passed Wayne Gretzky in 2 less career games than it took Gretzky to reach the milestone. Now, here's where you start to parse the numbers a little bit, right? Ovechkin, with the goal last night, 30-goal season, that's his 19th 30-goal season. Now, Obi also leads Gretzky all time in 20-goal seasons, 30-goal seasons, and 40-goal seasons. Both guys are tied in terms of 50-plus goal seasons with 9. Here's where Gretzky beats Ovechkin. Gretzky beat Ovi in 60-goal seasons 5-1. So Ovechkin had one 60 or more goal season. Wayne Gretzky had 5 of them. And when you just stop and think about it, in 5 years, the Great One amassed a minimum of 300 goals. You just look at it that way and you realize how the number gets up there pretty quickly. So everybody can decide, who's the best scorer or whatever. But the fact that Ovechkin has been statistically now, okay, not winning-wise, statistically on a level of Wayne Gretzky for a healthy chunk of his career, if we're being honest, when it comes to Ovi, I'm just a little surprised that more isn't being made of this. And I started to think of it, and Mike and I were kind of going back and forth on it a little bit and stuff like that, but one of the things I know we didn't get into that I started to ponder and really think about is, if this were Connor McDavid about to break Wayne Gretzky's record, would we be getting a different reaction from just the typical sports media? And I was going to go like Brad Marchand or someone like that, but no, I mean, we'll talk about somebody who is regarded as among the best hockey players in the game. And Connor McDavid, clearly, I would say right now, if you ask a lot of hockey fans who's the best player in hockey, a lot of people would lean towards Connor McDavid. And it makes me wonder if he's playing in Washington, so maybe for some hockey fans, it's flying under the radar a little bit because he's on a team that if he's on the Toronto Maple Leafs, it's a bigger story. Let's put it that way. Or if Ovi is an Edmonton Oiler, the way Gretzky was, then maybe it's a little bit of a different story. But it feels like for some reason, there's kind of a disconnect in terms of the pumping up how big of an achievement this is. I'm 50 years old, folks. I grew up Yinzer, which means I grew up in Western Pennsylvania. So my favorite hockey player of all time was Mario Lemieux. God rest Mike Lang, by the way. Mike Lang is the dude that, scratch my back with a hacksaw. Mario Lemieux. Fantastic. I grew up on that. But I also grew up with the whole Gretzky-Lemieux kind of debate, right? Because Lemieux ended up getting hurt. They made rule changes because of Lemieux like they did Bobby Orr. So there is a lasting legacy of Mario Lemieux in the game of hockey outside of the numbers. But, to see a guy that was 6'9" on skates who had the offensive skill that Mario Lemieux did, it was kind of you have Gretzky, who is playing with Hall of Famers all around him up in Edmonton. The game is much more free-flowing. You start to look around a little bit, and you try to compare people of the era, and there were a lot of people where there was that, how does Lemieux fit in and the debate amongst the greats and all that kind of stuff. And Lemieux's gone on to own the Penguins in big hockey history. But it just feels like right now, this should probably be something a little bigger. And I get it that people look at hockey and say it's Canada's game, but come on. Wayne Gretzky, to me, Wayne Gretzky made the LA Kings. You don't put Wayne Gretzky in LA, I don't know if the Kings are as big as they became at one point in time. I think Wayne Gretzky is a better scorer. I feel like Wayne Gretzky was the better player. Stylistically, they're both different. Times in the games are very different. And here's the thing that I think maybe works against Gretzky the most. Free agency was not an issue that Wayne Gretzky had to deal with in the early part of his career in Edmonton, being surrounded by all these Hall of Famers and putting up these 60-point seasons. The rules were different, free agency was different, and the game was different. But it's still Wayne Gretzky, for crying out loud. So I'm a little disappointed, I think, in all of us, in the sports media, in sports fans as well. It's Wayne Gretzky. You might not know a lot of hockey players, but do you know who the hell Wayne Gretzky is? Now, I want to go to Big Mike back in New York because I know he loves his hockey. And Mike, where are you kind of landing on this? Not that people are necessarily going to compare Ovechkin to Gretzky, because I do think there are some differences there that I kind of laid out, but, come on, you're scoring 900 goals in pro hockey. I don't care who you are. You're pretty damn good.
Yeah, just Gretzky was a different monster. Like, I look at Ovechkin. Listen, I know he's had a bunch of 50-goal seasons. He's led the league in goal scoring a bunch of times. He is a prolific goal scorer, but his high in goals in a season is 65. Gretzky had over 65 times, 62, 73, 71, 87, and 92 goals. He had 92 goals in 1981-82. He won the MVP of the league the first 8 seasons he was in the league. From the time he was a rookie to the time he was in his 8th season, he won the MVP. He was that good. Nothing compares to Wayne Gretzky. So it's cool to see the chase, but it feels like Ovechkin's more of a compiler, whereas Gretzky at his peak was the greatest player in any sport and dominated a sport more than any player did in any sport in the history of this game. Nobody has dominated a single sport more than Gretzky dominated hockey.
And look, I even looked up because when I was a kid, I remember if you scored 50 goals in under 50 games, that was a big deal, right? Like Lemieux did it, 50 goals in 50 games in the 88-89 season. Just kind of to put it in perspective, Gretzky scored 50 goals in 50 games 3 times. 81-82, 83-84, and 84-85. Those seasons. Like Brett Hull did it twice. Rocket Richard did it once. Like Mike Bossy did it once. It kind of drives home your point, Mike, of the Gretzky in the 80 to 85 dominated the game in maybe ways that we'll never ever see again. However, the game was open. It was a little more different. And they never had to, Wayne Gretzky never woke up and said, oh, man, I might not have Mark Messier or Yari Curry beside me. You know what I mean? Free agency wasn't as big a deal, but I hope that we have shed some light on this here. Gresh in for Zach Gelb on the Infinity Sports Network. JR Sports Brief is coming up next. I will be in for Gelb tomorrow from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Everybody have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow. Great job by Mike and Stu. JR is next here on the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break.